After 48 hours chasing a fugitive, I thought the danger was over. But it was only when the red and blue lights flashed in my rearview mirror that my real fight for survival began. The exhaustion was a physical weight, pressing down on my eyelids, sinking into my bones. 48 straight hours. A multi-state manhunt for a fugitive who thought he was smarter than everyone else. He wasn't. They never are. Now, all I wanted was my own bed. The hypnotic rhythm of the highway blurred the lines between the road and the dark, empty fields on either side. My government-issued Dodge Charger, unassuming and gray, ate up the miles, a silent predator in the night. It was just after 2 a.m. The world was asleep, and I was minutes from joining it. Then the night exploded in my rearview mirror. Red and blue strobes painted the interior of my car in frantic, pulsating light. I sighed, a deep, weary sound that fogged the windshield for a second. I glanced at the speedometer. 66 in a 65. Seriously? I signaled, pulling the heavy vehicle onto the gravel shoulder, the tires crunching in the sudden silence. I killed the engine, turned on the interior dome light, and placed both hands on the steering wheel, fingers laced together. The drill. I knew it by heart. The seconds stretched into a full minute. Standard procedure is to wait for the officer to approach, but this felt different. It was a power play. Finally, a figure emerged from the patrol car, silhouetted against the blinding headlights. The beam of a maglite cut through the darkness, sweeping across my back seat before landing squarely on my face, forcing me to squint. Tap, tap, tap. The sharp, impatient rap of the flashlight against my driver's side window was unnecessarily aggressive. I pressed the button, and the window glided down with a soft whir. The man standing there was young, maybe late 20s, with a buzz cut and a jaw that looked like it was permanently clenched. His name tag read Miller. "License and registration," he said. His voice was gravelly, laced with a suspicion that was already set to boiling. "No, sir, no. Do you know why I pulled you over?" Just a command. "Of course, officer," I said, keeping my voice level and calm. I moved slowly, deliberately, reaching for the glove compartment. "I'm Deputy U.S. Marshal Marcus Thorne." Miller's eyes narrowed, his flashlight beam never wavering from my face. "Just the license and registration, pal." The word "pal" was dripping with condescension. He wasn't listening. He wasn't processing. He had already written the entire story in his head the moment he saw a black man in a suit driving a nice car on this particular stretch of road at this time of night. I handed him the documents. He snatched them from my hand. His flashlight beam dropped from my face to the papers, then back up to me, then scanned the inside of my car again. His gaze lingered on the passenger seat, where my suit jacket was neatly folded. "This your car?" he asked. The question was an accusation. "It's a government vehicle, registered to the Department of Justice," I replied, still calm, still professional. "De-escalate. That's what they teach you." "Uh-huh," Miller grunted, clearly not believing a word. "And what's a deputy marshal like you doing out here in the middle of nowhere?" "I'm on my way home, officer. Just wrapped up a fugitive apprehension detail near the state line." His lip curled into a sneer. "A fugitive apprehension detail. Right." He shone the light into my eyes again, an intimidation tactic straight out of a bad movie. "Step out of the car." My professional calm finally cracked, replaced by a spike of cold indignation. This was no longer a traffic stop. "Officer, for what reason am I being asked to exit my vehicle?" I asked, my voice a little harder now. "I see a weapon," he said, his voice dropping an octave, his hand moving to rest on the butt of his own holstered Glock. He was talking about my service weapon, a Sig Sauer P229, holstered and secured on my right hip, partially visible under my unbuttoned suit jacket. "Officer, I am a federal law enforcement officer, as I've stated. My credentials are in my wallet, which is in my back pocket. I am legally and professionally required to be armed." This was the moment for him to take a breath, to listen, to reevaluate the situation. A moment for his training to kick in and tell him he was making a catastrophic mistake. He didn't take it. The sneer on his face hardened into a mask of pure aggression. "I don't care who you say you are. I see a gun, and I'm telling you to get out of the car. Now move!" I took a slow, deliberate breath. This was escalating far too quickly. "Officer Miller," I started, trying one last time to pull him back from the brink. "I am telling you, for your own good." That was as far as I got. He saw my lips move and his brain screamed, "Threat!" He misinterpreted my attempt at de-escalation as defiance. In one fluid, terrifying motion, he drew his weapon. The click of the safety being disengaged was deafening in the silent night. He leveled his Glock, the barrel now just inches from my face, separated only by the open window. "I said," he hissed, his eyes wide with a terrifying mix of fear and adrenaline, "get out of the car, now!" My training took over, a calm, cold river flowing through the fire of my adrenaline. Every muscle tensed, but my movements remained fluid, telegraphed, and slow. One wrong move, one sudden flinch, and this kid would pull the trigger. He was that amped up. He was that scared. "Okay, officer. No problem," I said, my voice a low, steady baritone. I raised my hands slowly, palms open and empty, until they were visible outside the window frame. "I'm stepping out. Just tell me what you want me to do." "Hands where I can see them! On the roof of the car!" Miller barked, his own voice tight and high-pitched. He backed away a single step, giving me just enough room to maneuver, but his Glock never wavered. It was still aimed squarely at my chest. I pushed the door open with my left hand and unfolded myself from the car, the gravel crunching under my dress shoes. I placed my hands flat on the cold metal roof as instructed. The indignity of it was a bitter pill to swallow, but my survival instincts were screaming louder than my pride. From the corner of my eye I could see him approaching, his weapon still raised. "On your knees, now!" I complied, lowering myself onto the sharp gravel of the shoulder. The rocks bit into the fine fabric of my suit trousers, digging into my kneecaps. He kicked my feet apart, forcing me off balance, and shoved me forward until my chest was pressed against the side of my own car. The cold steel of handcuffs bit into my wrists, ratcheted tight enough to cut off circulation. Only then did he holster his weapon. "So, you're a Marshal, huh?" he sneered, his breath hot on the back of my neck as he roughly patted me down. He yanked my wallet from my back pocket. I heard it flip open. There was a moment of silence. I expected the apology, the dawning horror, the frantic unlocking of the cuffs. It never came. "This is a pretty good fake," he said, his voice dripping with mock admiration. "Looks almost real. Where'd you get it? One of those online novelty shops?" He tossed my wallet onto the ground, the plastic of my credit cards skittering against the gravel. My federal credentials, my identity, lay face down in the dirt. "Impersonating a federal officer. That's a big one, pal. You're going away for a long, long time." He was doubling down. It wasn't just a mistake anymore. It was a conscious, deliberate choice to refuse reality. He couldn't admit he was wrong, so he was trying to bend the world to fit his narrative. I remained silent. Anything I said would just be twisted, used as more proof of my supposed deception. Miller stalked back to his patrol car and grabbed his radio. His voice cut through the night, filled with a self-important swagger. "Dispatch, 7 Adam 12. I've got a suspect in custody. Pulled him over for reckless driving, found him armed. Subject is claiming to be a federal officer presenting fraudulent credentials." Reckless driving? I was going 1 mile per hour over the speed limit. The lies were piling up, each one burying him deeper. I could hear the crackle of the dispatcher's voice, too faint to make out the words, then Miller again. "Yeah, I'll need backup to transport, and run the plates on his vehicle, probably stolen." The next 5 minutes were the longest of my life. On my knees, cuffed, with an officer who was either dangerously incompetent or maliciously corrupt, watching me with smug satisfaction. Finally, 2 more sets of headlights appeared in the distance, growing brighter until 2 more cruisers skidded to a stop, flanking Miller's car and bathing the entire scene in a chaotic wash of flashing lights. An older, heavier officer got out of the lead car. The stripes on his sleeve identified him as a sergeant. He had a tired, seen-it-all look on his face. He walked over, his eyes taking in the whole scene, me on my knees, the government-plated Charger, and Miller, who was puffed up like a peacock. "Miller, what the hell is all this?" the sergeant asked, his voice a low rumble. "Got a live one, Sarge," Miller said, practically beaming. "This guy was flying down the highway. Found a gun on him, and he tried to pass himself off as a U.S. Marshal. Even had the fake ID to prove it." He gestured dismissively toward my wallet on the ground. The sergeant didn't even look at Miller. His gaze was fixed on the plates of my Charger. He walked past Miller, his heavy boots crunching on the gravel, and bent down to pick up my wallet. He opened it, pulling out the credentials with a practiced thumb. He shone his own flashlight on the badge, then on the photo ID. He read the name. He read it again. His entire demeanor changed. The tired professionalism was replaced by a sudden, sharp alarm. His head snapped up, and his eyes met mine. For the first time all night, I saw a flicker of understanding, of fear. He turned to Miller, his face a mask of disbelief. "What's your badge number, Miller?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. 712, Sarge. Why?" The sergeant ignored him, keying the mic on his shoulder. "Dispatch, this is Sergeant Evans. I need you to run a badge number for me. 7-1-2. I want a full history on that officer. Complaints, commendations, everything. And tell the sheriff I need him on scene. Now." He let go of the mic and took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving Miller's face. "Son," he said, and the word was laced with ice, "you have any idea who you just put in handcuffs?" The air crackled with a new kind of tension. Miller's smug confidence began to visibly crumble, replaced by a confused, defensive posture. "Sarge, I was just doing my job. He was being belligerent. He had a weapon." "Shut up, Miller. Just shut your mouth," Sergeant Evans snapped, not even bothering to look at him. He knelt down in front of me, the gravel crunching under his own weight. His eyes, full of a weary apology, met mine. "Deputy Marshal Thorne," he said, his voice now respectful, almost reverent. "I am so sorry. Let me get these cuffs off you." He fumbled for his key, his hands shaking slightly as he unlocked the restraints. The circulation rushed back into my hands with a painful tingle. I stood up slowly, brushing the gravel off my knees, the anger I had suppressed now simmering just below the surface. Evans handed me my wallet and credentials, which I took without a word. "The sheriff is on his way," Evans said quietly. "Is there anyone you need me to call?" "Yeah," I said, my voice low and hard as I pulled out my cell phone. "I'll make the call myself." I dialed a number I knew by heart. It rang twice. "Johnson?" A gravelly voice answered, sharp and awake even at this hour. "It's Thorne," I said, my eyes locked on Miller, who now looked like a ghost. "I've got a situation. I'm on Highway 17, just past mile marker 204. I've been unlawfully detained and assaulted by an officer of the Oak Haven County Sheriff's Department." There was a pause on the other end, then, "Say that again, Marcus?" I repeated the details, my voice cold and precise. I could hear furious typing on the other end of the line. "Assistant Director Thompson is being notified," Johnson said. "A team from the Office of Professional Responsibility is being dispatched from the regional office. ETA is 45 minutes. Do not let those officers leave." "They're not going anywhere," I said, and hung up. The weight of those words, Assistant Director, Office of Professional Responsibility, hung in the air like a death sentence. The other two officers who had arrived as backup were now actively avoiding eye contact with Miller, inching away from him as if his career failure was a contagious disease. Miller, for his part, was pale. The bravado had completely evaporated, leaving behind a scared, pathetic kid who had just realized he'd tried to bully the wrong man. "Look, sir," he stammered, taking a step toward me. "There's been a misunderstanding." I held up a hand, and he stopped dead. "Officer Miller, the time for misunderstandings was 20 minutes ago when I identified myself as a federal officer. The time for de-escalation was before you drew your weapon on me. The time for apologies was before you threw my credentials in the dirt and accused me of impersonation. That time is over." Headlights appeared in the distance, but these were different. They were accompanied by the unmistakable silhouette of a black Chevy Tahoe, the official vehicle of the county sheriff. It pulled up, and a tall man in a crisp uniform with a silver star on his chest got out. Sheriff Henderson. I'd met him a few times at joint task force meetings. He took one look at the scene, at me, standing free, and at Miller, looking like he was about to be sick, and his face hardened. "Thorne," he said, his voice a grim rumble as he walked over. "Evans filled me in over the radio. What happened?" I gave him the unvarnished truth, every detail from the 1 mile per hour over-the-limit stop to the gun in my face, to the fraudulent, reckless driving claim Miller had radioed in. With every word, Sheriff Henderson's face grew darker. When I was done, he turned to Miller. The silence was absolute. "Give me your badge and your weapon," the sheriff commanded, his voice devoid of any emotion. Miller stared at him, dumbfounded. "Sheriff, Now!" Henderson roared, and Miller flinched as if struck. Fumbling, he unclipped his badge from his uniform and unholstered his Glock, handing them both to the sheriff with a trembling hand. "You're suspended, pending termination," Henderson said, his voice dropping back to a cold, flat tone. "Sergeant Evans will escort you back to the station where you will wait for me. Don't say a word. Don't call anyone. Just wait." As Sergeant Evans led the now former Officer Miller away, his career reduced to a walk of shame back to a patrol car, Sheriff Henderson turned back to me. "Marshal Thorne, on behalf of my department, I am profoundly sorry. There is no excuse for this. We will cooperate fully with the OPR investigation. Whatever you need from us, you have it." I just nodded, too exhausted to say more. I watched them go, the red and blue lights disappearing down the highway, leaving me alone in the quiet darkness. I ran a hand over my face, the adrenaline finally draining away, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness and a familiar bitter ache. It wasn't about victory, it was about survival. I had survived another encounter that could have ended with a hashtag. I got back in my Charger, the engine rumbling to life. My bed was still waiting, but I knew, as the miles disappeared beneath my wheels, that sleep would not come easy tonight.